Welcome to the programming show. Today we're going to be discussing nanoparticles and men's health. Do nanoparticles damage a man's testes? A little background before we get into the testicle issue. How big are nanoparticles? Nanoparticles are 1/1000th of a meter, where a millimeter is 1,000th and a micrometer is 1/1,000,000th. A nanoparticle is 1/1000,000th. So these particles are so small, you can compare them. It's like comparing a football to the size of the earth. They're literally a ghost. No membrane in your body can keep them out. So they can freely move through your skin or your blood-brain barrier, which keeps harmful substances out of your brain. They can move through all of your tissue. So this study fed rats manganese oxide nanoparticles at different concentrations. It's not a huge study, but the results show it reduces your testosterone, luteinizing hormone, follicle stimulating hormone, and damages your sperm producing cells. So just to start, you can see it here. So in this study, scientists fed rats titanium dioxide at different levels, and what they found is a dose-dependent response or drop in testosterone, DHEA, various important hormones to men's health. And I'm just going to get to the conclusion. If you want to read the study, there's not much more to it than that. These nanoparticles are pretty bad for your health. They accumulate in your testicles and they damage the function of your testicles, killing your sperm. Okay, so this study looked at, again, what happens if you feed mice titanium dioxide nanoparticles. And the results are not good. They found it induces oxidative stress within different cells and tissues of the male reproductive system. And it's significantly damaging. I've included a photomicrograph, which is basically just a photograph of from a microscope. And the way this study worked is they took a lot of these with a computer and then analyzed it with the computer. But in this picture, you can see the cells should be circular or relatively circular with a little tail or none. But the titanium dioxide damaged cells, they almost look exploded, like the cell is growing out of itself. And this is not the only study on this. They've included in the discussion comparison to other results which show damage to the seminal vessels and different tissues in the male reproductive system. Also, females are not off the hook. It also damages their different tubes and tissues. So it doesn't look good. Titanium dioxide is actually a food additive in different candied nuts and undoubtedly other places. On the upside, this study shows that NaCl can can act as an antioxidant to protect the body against these nanometals. And it's a NaCl is some people take it as a supplement, which I don't recommend, but it's a precursor to glutathione, which has many different protective effects against different types of contaminants people are exposed to. Now, let's talk about something even more interesting. The rise of vaporizers. People like to think vapes are better for you, safer. They're not. This study looks at the DNA damage from inhaling electronic cigarette aerosols. And a huge component of that, I suspect, is the copper nanoparticles. I believe the copper nanoparticles come from the heating element, which I'll show in the next study. But nevertheless, these things are not safer. I know it's hard to believe because smoking is supposed to be so bad for you. So this study gets into the DNA damage that they've measured of lung cells from e-cigarette aerosols. This study analyzed different components of a vaporizer, specifically the cardan atomizer, and found they're made of tin, but they're coated with different metals. And it's actually a piece of metal surrounded by foam. So the foam itself could be a source of contamination. But if you look at what they find, there's different metals in there. Copper itself is not very good to breathe in, and high copper levels and low zinc levels are associated with criminality. There's a long-term study on that. But tin itself is not very good to breathe in either. It's an element. Interesting that there's a whole array of metals in there: chromium, nickel, zinc, and much of it is on the nano scale. So this study, real-time measurement of electronic cigarette aerosol size distribution and metal content analysis, shows two graphs, figure 1 and figure 2. And what you can see is the comparison between normal tobacco smoke and vaporizer smoke. And the skew to the right from your normal tobacco smoke is a larger particle sizes. But for the vaporizer graph, you can see they're all skewed to the left, which means the particle size is much smaller. So, they discuss this a little bit, that this really throws a wrench in their data, or their ability to say vaporizers are safe, because nanoparticles can have, even though it sounds like they're smaller, they're not safer. They're actually probably more dangerous than larger size particles. So if you have friends who vape, or if you vape, it's better to just smoke real tobacco, unfiltered, because the filters themselves also contain particulate matter. And traditionally the filters are made of cellulose acetate, which is the same material they use to make photography film. So it's basically a plastic or film. So you don't want to breathe small particles of plastic, as they get stuck in your lungs. You don't want to breathe nanoparticles. You don't want to eat nanoparticles. It shouldn't need. You want to dig into the science. I encourage you to do that. The links will be in the description below. But vaping is it's not the new smoking. It's much worse than that. So take care of your health, guys. If you like the video, please like, share, and subscribe.